About 2 years ago, I went through a streak of 14 losing trades, but the losses were only part of it. There were another 6 trades that ended up being a break-even, and with the strategy I was trading at the time, that took a while. I was only getting around 6 to 8 setups per month. So this was not a terrible week where everything went wrong and then disappeared. It lasted for almost 3 months. Every time I would wait several days for another wallet setup, take it exactly the way I had tested it, then watch it either hit the stop or give me nothing. After that, the waiting started again. And the strange part is that I was already years into trading at this point. I had been trading full-time for years. I understood variance, and I knew a 12-hour strategy which I had traded at the time was going to lose far more often than it won. But knowing that 14 losses were mathematically possible did not make the experience any smoother. The first few trades passed normally. Then enough time went by that I started noticing how long it had been since I had actually seen a winner reach the target. It just did not come. Another setup appeared. Another trade finished. Then I was back to waiting again. When I originally tested the strategy, I had already seen stretches like this. I could scroll through the data and watch losses and breakevens appear close together until eventually a large winner arrived and the entire period looked normal again. Inside the backtest, that sequence barely took any time. I clicked through every trade, recorded the result and moved on. But live trading made the exact same sequence feel completely different. Because after a loss, I could not click forward to the next setup. I had to wait for it. Sometimes nothing valid appeared for a while. Then other setup came and that one lost too. Now I had to wait again. So the streak had time to become part of normal life. It becomes the month where trading produced nothing. Then other month starts and the same sequence is still running. Nothing dramatic has to happen. You do not need to blow the account or break every rule. The strategy can simply keep giving you wallet setups that do not pay. And that is harder to prepare for than the drawdown number itself. Because a drawdown of 14 ARC looks fixed on a spreadsheet. You know the size and can plan the risk around it. But the waiting has no clear end. You do not know which setup finishes it or how much longer it will occupy your life. You only know that the next trade still has to be taken the same way. And the losses were easier to process than the break-evens. Some of those trades moved far enough that for a moment it looked like the winner had finally arrived. My winner in this case would be in a 10-hour win or 15-hour, even 20 hours sometimes. But after going that long without one winner, even a decent move in my direction started feeling very important. Maybe this was the trade that would finally reach the 12-hour target. Maybe this was where the whole period turned around. Then price came back. The trade closed around entry and I was left in almost the same place as before. The account had survived, but the wait had not ended. That was why those 5 or 6 breakevens made the streak worse than 14 straight losses would have sounded. They kept bringing the possibility of a winner close enough for me to feel it. And then that, the account showed almost no change. Now I had to wait for the next valid setup again. And somewhere during that period, I did what most traders would probably expect. I went through the trades and checked whether I was doing something wrong. I compared the entries with the rules and checked whether the losses had started pushing me to valid setups. But the execution was fine. The trades were valid. And once I saw that, I stopped investigating. With a 12-hour model, 7 or 8 losses were completely expected. Even a streak worse than that was already inside the data. So another loss was not information. It was another outcome the strategy had already told me could happen. That did not make the 3 months enjoyable though. But it meant I did not have to solve the same question after every trade. I had checked the only part I controlled. Was I still taking the setup the way it had been tested? Yes. So I kept taking it. Then one of the trades that could have changed almost the entire period finally appeared. The setup was valid, the entry was placed, and I still did not get the trade. A clean CHF GPI setup appeared, the kind of trade I had been waiting for. I placed a limit order and adjusted it for the spread the same way I normally would. But price moved down to the entry so quickly that the spread suddenly widened. On TradingView, the price reached my level, my order never filled. Then price turned around and ran almost 10 hours without me. I still have the post I made about it at that time. The title was CHF GPI 9.6 hour win missed. And underneath it I wrote, I am frustrated, very frustrated, not gonna lie. Because after all those losses and breakevens, this was the trade that could have changed the entire period. 9.6R would have recovered most of the damage from the losing streak. So I went back and checked what had happened. The spread expanded as price reached the entry and the order was left behind. There was no execution mistake for me to correct afterward. That's how I made it even more frustrating. When you miss a winner because you were scared at least there is something clear to blame. You can look back and say, I should have taken the trade, but I had taken it. As far as my own process was concerned, everything had been done properly. I wrote that every winner you see should increase your confidence in the strategy, and technically, that was true. The setup had just produced exactly the kind of move the system must be to catch. But confidence was not what I needed at that point. I already knew the strategy would produce the winner. I needed the winner to reach the account. The entire model relied on small number of trades, traveling far enough to pay for everything around. I had already been training for full time for years, and I was not depending on that one trade to cover my immediate life. But if I had needed that 9.6 hours to pay my bills, watching it run to the target without me after almost 3 months without a winner would have completely broken me. So I started testing my strategies differently. Before, I would only look at the final return and the maximum drawdown. After this, I also removed one of the largest winners from the sample and run the numbers again. Because with the 12-hour strategy, a few rare trades carry most of the result. And live, one of them can easily disappear. You might be asleep when the setup appears, or the order never fills because the spread expanded at the wrong moment. Sometimes the return dropped, but the edge was still clear. Other times, one missing winner changed almost everything. Profitable months became flat. The entire sample became much weaker. And that showed me how much the original result depended on catching nearly every rare winner. After that, every high reward test had to show me 2 versions. The result with every large winner included, and the result after one of them was removed. Because the clean equity curve assumes you captured every important trade. Those 14 losses were already expected. What changed afterward was how I measured the winners. I stopped assuming that every large trade inside the sample would reach my account. I needed to know what remained when one of them didn't.